All right, everybody, welcome back to another night of the storytelling session. I am going to, you know who I am because I've been on here every week and I have been on the LCS counseling page all the time. I'm Latoya and consulting agency. I'm just going to do this real quick with LCS Counseling and Consulting Agency here in Fort Worth, Texas. So you know that we have storytelling sessions. You know that we do strong witness, right? So every Tuesday, or for the foreseeable Tuesdays, we'll be on here having our storytelling sessions. And remember last week I talked about the importance for me of calling them sessions now. Because I want people to be able to feel free to jump in if they, in fact, had something that they wanted to share, or if they hear a message, if they hear a story, and it does in fact resonate with them. I want people to know that they can stay connected and then join in the story. So this storytelling session that we have here in May. Remember April? We talked about it a lot. Everybody should know it by now that April is Sexual Assault, Child Abuse Awareness Month. But this storytelling session right here, we're talking about mother's love. So we are intentional with, we know that the month of May is, Mother's Day. May holds so many dates, right? We got so many graduations, we got birthdays, but Mother's Day is a really special and important day. And so I thought it would be really nice to hear stories from moms. So about mom, from moms, in memory of moms. We have a very special guest tonight that's going to come on and talk about her journey in motherhood, but also her daughter, Makayla. Next week, I have another special person that's going to come on and talk about losing her mother at such a young age. And then as well, I have another guest in a couple weeks that's going to come on talking about being a teenage mom. So there's so much to this. And so I want to make sure that everybody is tuned in for it. Also, it's important, we want to make sure that everybody remembers that sharing and listening to your stories does not in any way replace therapy. Okay, so this is a great place to share stories and to connect and to heal, but it doesn't take the place of actually sitting on a therapist's couch like I had back there or virtually and being in a therapy session. As always, I remind people that these stories are pretty triggering and they're heavy. If you at any time are feeling overwhelmed, it's important to remember that you should probably log off at that time. And then I like to share with people, if you have a story that you'd like to share, like however, maybe it's in word, maybe I've had people tell me they have stories to share, but they're not one for spoken word. They're not one to open up and talk their words out. It takes some time. So I tell them, you know what, write it down. I'm open to reading poetry. I'm open to any artwork. I love photography and I'm not good at it, but I love it. So, if you share your story in any way and you're ready and you're able and that's something you want to do, please, by all means, send it in to me. So my email address is up here. I'll list it again several times. And I'm going to hand it over to Miss Stephanie Gray, and she is going to share her story. Let me see here. Stephanie, welcome to the Strong Witness Storytelling Session. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being in this space. And I do want to shout out Boss Mom Crew because that's how I got connected with you. So I thank Danielle, it is, right, for even, accepting like the question I had. I think I got connected through her to Instagram. Instagram is wonders with like relationships and connections. So I thank you for that space. So, and I thank you for answering this request. And I know we chatted a little bit last week. So I just want to, hand it over to you, and however you want to share your story and share about your daughter, I'm going to give you space to do that. So you can introduce yourself to the viewers, those here now, those that'll be listening later, and then I'll let you flow from there.
All right, my name's Stephanie Gray. I am a married mother of 3. As you can see, that was hard to say. It's still weird to say 3, knowing that one has been lost. my sweet girl, Makayla, that's her up here. We lost her last year to heart disease. June 23rd, she was 12 years old. Makayla was a brave and beautiful child. I knew since I was a little girl that when I grew up, I wanted to have a daughter. I wanted to have this beautiful little child to dress up and play dolls with and just have a friend, have a, I don't even know how to describe it. I just knew that the relationship I would build with her would be strong. So me and Makayla, we had a different kind of relationship. It was a little deeper. I personally, as you said, May is a lot of things. It's also Lupus Awareness Month. I was diagnosed with lupus after I had my firstborn, Michael. He's 16. Lupus, it's a rough disease. It stole a lot from me. It stole 10 years of my life. That's how long my first flare was. It's the reason why Makayla was born with third-degree heart block, also known as complete heart block. So we knew when I was pregnant that she was going to have some challenges, but we said we'd face them. And from her first pacemaker at 3 days old to her transplant at 7, everything in between, it's just it's been a heavy journey. One thing that going through hospital stay after hospital stay personally, you learn to appreciate being home. So when Makayla was sick and as she started on her transplant journey for a new heart when she was 6 years old, she craved home every time we were away. So I would try to bring that with us. I would bring pictures, bring blankets, her favorite stuffed animals. You know, you try to make it like home, even though the hospital never feels like it. I'm sorry.
You know, and it's okay to take your time too through it. I know it's a heavy story to share. You know what I mean? But maybe you can too, if it's tell some of the listeners even what third degree heart blockage is, because I wasn't even sure what is that just. Yeah.
So third degree heart block, whenever a baby's born, their heart rate's typically like in the 120s, 130s. You know, their heart beats extra fast, unlike ours, which is typically in the 60s to 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Makayla's heart rate stayed in the 30s when she was born. It beat really slow. There wasn't enough oomph in the electric system. Mm-hmm. So there was a blockage. They ended up having to put a pacemaker in when she was 3 days old. And she did great with that. She didn't have to have any hospital visits, didn't have to take any medicine after that. Like, no one knew she had any issues at all, unless you could see her scars. She was like just a normal toddler hitting her milestones. Then when she turned 3 years old, I got really sick. Lupus had taken my kidneys, took both of them, and I ended up on dialysis. At this point, I was in the hospital. They were, draining all the extra fluid on me. I ended up having like a good 80 pounds of fluid they drained off within the first 2 weeks. Like I was swollen. It was really bad. They said if I waited another week or two, I wouldn't have made it. So while we're dealing with that, my husband brings our daughter in, 3 years old, in the morning and just wanted to let me know that she was going in for surgery because he did a pacemaker check on her and there was no signal being shot. So it had came disconnected. So she ended up getting surgery. So we were in the hospital at the same time. At that point, I got to check out the next day and went directly over to the children's hospital. There, I checked in with her. I didn't go home. I had to be there with her. Luckily, this beautiful, brave little child, she was ready to go 48 hours after having this new pacemaker placed. I remember she was ready to go home, and so we had to get her in the wheelchair. So my husband, Christian, was about to, go and help her, and she was like, I got it. So at 3 years old, with this long scar down her chest and all these bandages, this little girl just slid herself off the little side of the hospital bed and climbed up into the wheelchair, and we got her home. She did that so much to where she knew she could push herself just a little bit. Like she wanted to challenge herself. She hated being in the hospital. I have a video of her. She just made me so proud, but it's a video of her in the hospital trying to wake up from one of her heart procedures. And the anesthesia is real heavy on her, but she's trying to force herself awake, and she's trying to, just wake her body up, and she just keeps shaking. And she's like, I want to go home. I want to get out of here. And they're like, well, we got to get you up. We got to get you eating and drinking. And she's like ready to order her food, but she's half asleep. But she was listening to what they were telling her she needed to do. And she was always willing to do what it took to get herself better. She was always willing to fight. There were times in the hospital that she just wanted to get up and walk the floor. So that's what we did. No matter what time it was, we'd get up, put on our little slippers, cover up her butt, and go walk the floor as many times as she wanted, as long as she had the energy. Being the mom of someone like Makayla, someone who was chronically ill so much of their life, it pushes you. It teaches you some lessons. It teaches you patience. Like this child, they get so scared, but they try to be so brave. And they try to be brave for you. They try to be brave for themselves. They try to psych themselves up and talk themselves into it. Like I've seen her talk herself into it. She'll do the self-comforting and it's going to be okay. Like she had to be brave. She knew that you had to be brave in this world, that there were so many fights, not just sickness, but being Black in this world, being a woman in this world. There's so many battles that we don't choose to be a part of, but we can decide how we handle it. We can decide how we're going to fight it. And Makayla was one that would fight it with a smile. She just After every procedure, I would just sit by her hospital bed, holding her hand, rubbing it, waiting for that squeeze. And I'd get the little squeeze and look over, and she'd have that little smirk starting to appear, or her eyes would just burst open and start looking around, and then she'd go back out. But she'd check in. She knew to let mommy know she was okay. And when she did that, then I could sit back and I could breathe. I'm looking around at the pictures I put up. This is my little office. And you can see the pictures beside me of my family. Like learning to appreciate your loved ones, learning to find strength and that goodness in people can really show. I've had a lot of people who have Makayla's fight. They followed her journey over years. They reach out and check in. They miss her smile. They miss hearing of her latest accomplishments. Makayla was a kid that made me proud. Like I looked at her and her beautiful brothers. I look at them. I have a great husband and great kids, my boys. I look at them and I cry for them. They had a little sister. Like, I love them so much. I cry for them. They were such good big brothers to her. So this little girl, her impact in this world is something, it's something that's helping to carry me right now. Seeing the beauty that she's always created in this world by simply existing. Seeing the love people have for each other, the appreciation they show each other when I can hear from a mom who said they got off of Facebook for a month so they can dedicate uninterrupted time with their kids. Like that's the love people. It's easy for us to take for granted, spending these simple moments together. Playing cards with Makayla was one of my favorite things. She loved to challenge me at speed. And she started to get really, really good to where she would legitimately beat me. There were times that I let her beat me, because gotta make them smile, gotta make them feel a little good sometimes. But she genuinely started kicking my butt. And I told her how impressed I was with her. Like being able to be Makayla's mom, living through such heavy moments. There were just nights in a row, I would not sleep, either because she was too sick to where I was scared to sleep, to where she was finally doing better and I was scared to miss a moment. I'd give anything for those moments back, though. She knew she was something special. She knew that she had the power to heal hearts, to awaken passions in people. Friends have ran marathons and dedicated it to her, and I would let her know, and she would light up so big and jump rope for heart-a-thons and just anything good in this world that I saw she caused, that people shared with me, I shared with her. And her smile would just light up the entire room. So when Makayla was 3, she got her second pacemaker. When she started kindergarten, she had an amazing time. She loved it. She was making friends. But she started getting sick towards the end of kindergarten year. She had stomach aches so bad that she passed out as she tried to dry heave in the toilet. It was so bad. After months and months of fighting, going into doctor's appointments, going to urgent care, going to the ER, the hospitals, being told it was gas, constipation. After so much runaround, so much fight, so many people looking at me like I was a crazy person, we finally got the answer, and her heart had failed so bad it was beyond repair. She got another pacemaker placed when she was 7 years old. When she was 6, to try and help, but her heart had gone into dilated cardiomyopathy, a type of heart failure where her heart was it was so big, it was squashing her diaphragm. She had gotten so sick, and this is before they realized it was her heart. She had gotten so sick that she couldn't play anymore. She had stopped eating. She couldn't walk. She had reverted back to crying like a toddler, and she was 6 years old at this point. But it was just such a dramatic change. And then finally they did the right test and did the full CT and everything. And it turned out that her heart was failing. Here in Oklahoma, when it comes to pediatric heart failure, they don't do the actual transplants here. So you either go to typically Texas or Missouri. So we ended up at St. Louis Children's out there for beginning this process. So it's being airlifted, coming back home, ambulance right out there, coming back home, airlifted again. Like it was this constant back and forth. There were times where it was emergent and they had to get us out there because, it was bad. At one point, she needed, after the pacemaker, when she was 6, they did a milrinone IV drip. Milrinone's a heart medication to help. So they ended up allowing us to go home on it. So she had a backpack that held her IV, and it just went into her arm, and we'd, go to Walmart and just live our regular lives. And it was my job to clean her sites and change out her IV bags and monitor her. That that was stressful. That was, a lot of worry, but I had to do it. That was my baby girl, and we got to go home, so we did that. That worked for a few weeks, and then she started to get worse. We ended up doing a LVAD. A LVAD is a device that goes into the heart. They core out a piece of it, a pretty good size, thick piece of it, and they place in this machine that then takes the place of your heartbeat. It feeds out through your stomach and into a machine that she wore like a purse. That machine scared the life out of me. So with that machine, the heartwear device, Makayla didn't have a heartbeat. She wore this for a few months. She was actually able to go back to school wearing it. But if you put your ear to her arm, you would hear a buzzing. Her heart just had no rhythm with this machine. It was just this buzz, this constant flow. So when she got that machine, she was 7 years old, in the first grade. She was allowed to go back to the school. The team in St. Louis actually sent out a nurse to train all the teachers and administrators, the principal and the nurses, on how that machine worked, because it had 2 batteries, each lasted 4 hours. And if they died, then her machine stopped working. So you can see why that scared the crap out of me. But it also had sounds, it had beats you had to listen for, it had lights that you had to know what the colors meant. So Makayla was trained on it as well. So at 7 years old, she had to learn what this device did that ran her heart. And when she was at school, if she was on the playground, she had to pay attention to it. And if it made a noise, like the low battery, and it would beep, and then the light would go yellow, she knew to go find a teacher, and the teacher would watch her as she changed her batteries, because it was her responsibility to do it. So, just the first 2 weeks that she went back, I stayed at the school because I felt nervous for myself. I felt nervous for her. I felt nervous for all the teachers. So I wanted to be there because I knew how scary that machine was. It actually, I saw her come unplugged from it completely 3 times. That was the scariest, those were the scariest moments of my life at that time. Once, 2 or 3 days after she had gotten it, they had looked at the reading from the night before and saw that there were some glitches. So they wanted to switch the whole computer part that she wore in the purse. And so to do that, you had to completely disconnect everything. And so they prepared us for it. They told us that she might faint, but they'd get her hooked right back up and she'd be okay. And so I just remember her she was so nervous. And I just kept telling her I was going to be okay. Like, the doctors are right there, but I was shaking so bad. And sure enough, when they said, okay, we're going to do it, and they unplugged it, she said, Mom. And she went out into my arms, and I just supported her while they hooked her back up, and she came back. Then about a month later, maybe just about 3 weeks later after that, we were still in the hospital because it's a pretty heavy recovery from that surgery. But we were on our way out. Like, she was recovering. We were in the less critical area of the floor, and she had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So I help her up. I check the battery, but something wasn't plugged right. So I helped her walk to the bathroom. She used it. I helped her back up because she was really weak with her legs. So I helped her back up. And then I hear the machine start blaring, and she goes limp, and I pick her up, and I start screaming, and I run her to the bed so I could lay her down, and the room fills up with all these doctors and nurses, and I ended up in the shower on the ground. Like, so many people came rushing in the room. I tried to back out, and I ended up just falling into the shower, and I laid there crying until the nurse came and got me up. But they got her back that time. So I told them at that moment that I wasn't taking her home on that. I said, no, we're staying here. I can't take her home on that. I don't trust that machine. I don't want to go home. So they put me in more training. They reassured me, they showed me how to double and triple check everything to make sure everything is completely secure. So we're good. And I agreed to go to the Ronald McDonald House. So me and her, we stay there for about a week. But on that very, very first day, lo and behold, we are in the room, me and Makayla, and I am in the bathroom putting on my pajamas, and she's getting ready for bed. And all she remembered was that she needed to disconnect one battery to plug in to the wall, but she disconnected both batteries. Luckily, she was sitting on the bed already. So when she fell back, she didn't hurt herself, but I rush over and I plug her back in. And it's like, you go through a lot when you have a sick kid. And so you try to be strong for them. You let them make you strong because you have to be strong. You look at them, you look at what they're going through, and you tell yourself you have to be better for them. You have to be stronger for them. You have to do it for them. Like, these sweet little things. You're their parent. You're their mama. Like, it's crazy. You hear people say how much kids change you, and they can change you for the better, for sure. My sweet girl, she was a fighter. Makayla fought so hard in this world. So with the LVAD, we ended up going back to school. The LVAD was like the Hail Mary. It was the last resort to get us to transplant. So Makayla, last I heard, she was still the youngest person to get that particular device. She's got some good genes. My husband's like, he's 6'5" and just a big dude. And so she was always a little bit bigger for her age. So that allowed her to actually get the LVAD instead of the Berlin heart, which is another medical device that it has a higher rate of blood clots than the LVAD. One of my friends, her daughter actually experienced that and had a stroke, and it's just, I was thankful my daughter didn't have to use that thing. That one was scary too. There's a lot of scary you face in this world with chronically ill kids. And watching them fight, watching them smile, watching them grow, watching them. I feel so lucky that I got to see her heal. Like, I see so many mamas out there whose babies, they didn't get to see the healing. They didn't get to see the beautiful survival, the beautiful, they've been cured. And I got that. Like, I got to see her healed. She got her heart. She got to go to second, third, fourth grade. She got to finish elementary school. She got to start middle school. Like, it's such a weird feeling to be grateful, but so crushed, and to feel so robbed. Like, I know, I mean, just seeing how many times we could have lost her before, and getting this much time additional with her. That girl was a warrior. So she got her heart when she was 7. Just got that. It was just one of those nights, after midnight, tucked in a bed, kids are asleep, and you see that phone number pop up, and you just sort of elbow the husband, and you're like, sweetie, are you seeing this? I remember the boys had to get a head start because we're in Oklahoma, and the heart transplant was going to take place in St. Louis. So Christian, our boys, my mom, his parents, the family, like, people started driving, but we were told to wait it out because a storm was moving in and interrupting the air travel. So I remember me and Makayla just sitting there on the couch watching TV, just trying to relax, trying not to think about it too much. Like, knowing your child is going in for a heart transplant, it's a scary feeling. Like, it's horrifying, but you're grateful. It's like, I remember me and her, we were driving to the airport to catch the plane to go get her transplant, and I was holding her hand, and she's just looking around, we're listening to music, acting like it's no big deal. I'm not going to make a big scary thing. I'm just telling her how much I love her and how she's going to do awesome. And, she's a little nervous, but she's smiling. She really wants to get back to school. She really wants to be a normal kid, someone who can just run around the playground and have fun and not have to be sick all the time. So we end up getting out there. She got to take pictures with the pilot. They were all celebrating her, and she was just smiling and just so beautiful. And she had her Supergirl shirt on, like she was a little superhero. She loved her superheroes. So we get there and we check in and everything, and everyone's excited. And thankfully, the majority of the family, all the immediate family, they were able to, ones who were coming, make it on time. So we did all of the love and all the kisses, all the hugs, all the prayers. Everybody got to just love on her, and then we sent her back. And 10 hours later, we get to finally peek in, and just, I remember how scary it looked. Like she looked great, because what just happened, like, and she's here, and so you celebrate in that. And she got a beautiful heart that they say was a perfect match. So I remember peeking in and seeing the dozens of wires running, and they had them in her groin, neck, chest. Like, she had tubes and wires everywhere, and all the doctors, nurses, and they were checking her in, checking this, checking that. She's got so many medicines pumping in her. So we're not allowed in for like a good another 45 minutes, because there was no room and just be in the way. So we just quietly peeked through and just checked on her, and she recovered quickly. Like, she was ready to go home on day 4 after getting a heart transplant. This girl was ready to go home 4 days later, like up and walking and eating, and like she was just a little superhero. Like she had her energy coming back, and to see her, just her color came back. Like it came back in her eyes. Like when Makayla was sick, you could see it in her eyes. When she wasn't feeling well, it was always in her eyes first. And I mean, even before she would say anything, you just knew, you're not feeling well, are you? But she didn't like complaining. She hated whining. Like she would just say, I'm sorry, this I hate this. I'm like, I know, babe, I hate it for you too, but we're gonna get through it. Like, one thing I always would tell her is, we're going to get through this. Like, you're not in this alone. We're going to get through this. And that's me. That's her daddy. That's her brothers. That's her grandparents. Like, we're getting through this. Like, we're all helping you. We're all cheering for you. You're strong. You're beautiful. I mean, I would try to speak as much positivity into her as I could. She, from all her surgeries, she had so many scars. She had keloids from them as well. And this was from her very first one at 3 days old. But she had some pretty long scars, especially from the transplant. And then they would get thick, like thicker than my thumb, going down, and they would hurt. They would hurt to the touch. They would hurt if certain clothes pressed against them. She just, she felt a lot of pain in her life. So I tried to encourage her and make her feel good in every other area I could. I would ask the doctors, is there a way to help with the pain she feels? And there wasn't, for her age, there wasn't anything, they'd recommend Moderna and stuff like that, but she couldn't rub anything in. It's just to the touch, it hurt. A gentle touch she would try, but she couldn't do much. And hers grew fast, and they were tough. And I had to teach her to love her scars and embrace them. I called her Mighty Makayla, the Heart Warrior, because warriors have scars. The bravest, the toughest, the most honorable have scars from the battles they fought in, because they will fight with every ounce of their being. They have to sacrifice their bodies sometimes. So when she would get ready for another surgery, I would just tell her, yes, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a little, like it always does. But we're just going to breathe through the pain, We'll get through it. And she knew every surgery meant a new scar. They were everywhere. And it was something she honestly was learning to just accept and be proud of. I mean, I remember she wanted to hide them her 5th grade year, but she realized she didn't want. She wanted to hide them because she wanted people to stop asking about them. But hiding them, I don't know. She all of a sudden just really embraced the fact that they're hers. Like, she would think about it, she would talk about it with me, and as I just tried to convince her, just tried to really have her realize, even though they may appear ugly, how beautiful they are, like the story they represent. They're a part of her. They're a part of her journey. I remember one time at Walmart, this older gentleman had seen her, and it was after her transplant, actually, and it was still a pretty fresh scar, so it was pretty thin, and it started really high up, so easily seen in all her shirts. And the gentleman goes, looks like a cat got you real good. And she just looks up at him, and she's 7, and she goes, actually, I had heart disease and I got a heart transplant. And he goes, oh. And she just nodded her head and smiled. And I was like, see, that's all it took, sweetie. Like, she used to get annoyed because all the little kids, especially in elementary school, would point and always just ask her, what's that from? What happened to you? What's that? And she just started getting annoyed with it. One boy even came up and poked it. And I remember she was so angry and so sad about it, and it hurt. And, I just tried to tell her not everybody thinks ahead of their actions. Like, just educate the boy, let him know, give him warning. Like, Makayla knew not to be mean, to hit and stuff like that. But she'll give you some lip. And so apparently she told them off a little. But I try to remind a lot of people who anger is their first response. And I didn't want that to be us. I knew Makayla would have some challenges down the line as she was getting older. I mean, she was 12 when she passed, but as she was getting older and starting to have more crushes and stuff. I worried about her self-confidence with the scars when it came to boys. I remember my husband, I'm a bit of an emotional person at times. But I remember, sorry, my battery, let me plug in real quick. Okay, where was I? Like, I legit lost my train of thought. You're muted.
You were talking about how the boys would start to say things, or kids would, and she would let them know how she really felt.
Oh, yes. So I started, we got better on how we responded to people. We try to respond with kindness, of course, and just educate people because, especially when it came to a lot of our scars, because they were so prominent. I told her, you just have to get used to looks. People don't always know to cast their eyes away, and we noticed it was more adults than kids that would stare at her scars. But she was really learning to just embrace and find the beauty in who she was, and just the love and the inspiration behind who she was. She saw the ripple effect, the people who became organ donors because of her story. So I would tell her, that makes you like a legit superhero. Like, because of you, lives are being saved. Like, seriously. So, I mean, that's why I love sharing about her. She really is. Her story is a beautiful one, and her existence, it's been one for the books. I'd give anything to have more time with her. But I'll forever be grateful that I'm her mama. So now I take care of her every time I go visit her. I bring my cleaning supplies and wipe off her headstone to make sure she's all cleaned up for any visitors, place fresh flowers, listen to some of our favorite songs, and I journal. I journal notes to her, thoughts that I have about her. I write poems, I draw pictures, just anything that comes to mind that reminds me of her or that I want to share with her. Now I feel like by keeping her story alive, a part of her is still actively here. Like that beautiful heart that could change hearts. And I just know I was lucky to call her my daughter. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing that, like your story of your daughter. And I know it was hard at points, but I mean, I know Makayla's a warrior, and you told me that last week when we chatted. But I mean, I want to say the same thing about you for being able to share that. I know there's a lot of mothers that are listening, and I know there's a comment in there that a lot of these mothers can't imagine having gone through what you went through. Right now, you have beautiful memories of Makayla. I'm just talking about, even when you talk about the scariest moments of the battery and replacing the battery or people rushing in. But the way you talk about Makayla, even last week and this week, I can tell she was a beautiful little girl and very strong. When you said at 7 years old, knew how to listen to the machine and listen to the monitor and knew when to check for batteries, and you called her mighty Makayla the Heart Warrior, which I thought was
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
I'm showing the comments here. This one's from my pastor, but I'm going through and I'm showing the comments from there's a lot of comments on here from people who hear your story, and if any of the moms that are anybody that's listening that has any comments or about Makayla or for Stephanie, and then I'm also going to bring another therapist up. Her name is Stephanie too, so you two have an automatic connection. But just because this flows in line with a lot of the work that she does. But as I bring her up, and then I, get off the screen too, I do want you to talk about last year, just real quick in the pandemic, and something you mentioned to me. Like when we look at the pandemic, we think about this, like, oh man, we want to get back out there. But I remember you saying you so much value that time because
Yeah,
Makayla passed away last summer. Is that right? In 2020.
June. Yeah,
But you were able to have that quiet, slow down time with her all
yeah.
spring. Yeah, but just talk
It's
about that for a few moments.
yeah, definitely. So with COVID and everything, I admit, like, there was panic. I truly was scared, being high risk myself. Lupus, and then my kidney transplant, heart disease. Myself, I have heart issues. And then with having a high risk daughter, there was a lot of fear that I had about COVID reaching our home. So I decided that we would start playing more family games. I added stuff to our backyard, bought hammocks, bought a trampoline, bought a giant Connect Four, giant Jenga. Um, I wanted to spend as much quality time with the family as I could. Um, Along with everything that was going on outside of the pandemic, the race wars that people were talking about, and just all the political unrest, all the police brutality. I mean, there was just so much intenseness already going on in 2020 that my family, as a Black family, with high risk people, and then we're Democrats in a very red state with all the insurrectionist flags flying throughout the neighborhood. I mean, it was a lot of anxiety last year. But I created a family game table. Me and my husband and the kids too, we just started picking out games. And just loaded up and we started having game nights. We started having movie nights. We bought a projector and we had movie nights outside where we sat on the trampoline or the hammocks or picnicked and we watched movies. Because of the pandemic and just everything that went on, locking down, getting back to the family, that was the greatest gift. Like, we got to spend so much quality time with Makayla. I look at whenever you become, well, especially with me since I am online a lot, but becoming a grieving mom has attracted other grieving moms to me. So we share our stories, and I've seen so many who watch their children decline slowly and pass away. And I mean, I'm grateful that our last days were full of joy and health. I mean, Makayla was jumping on the trampoline. She was chasing the dog around. We would go on walks throughout the neighborhood. We took some amazing night walks with all the kids and walked up to the neighborhood pond and enjoyed each other. We took one walk down one of the main streets where the highway overpasses are. And we look down and there's money on the ground. And next thing you know, we have, gosh, almost $200. Like, we had just random experiences like that. And I mean, we got to see birds nesting in the field. Like, we were just walking through our neighborhood and just, we got to experience a lot of sweet moments together that would have otherwise been distracted by, regular everyday life. So, I mean, just learning to appreciate each other more, especially through the pandemic, that was a gift. Makayla, she was a beautiful gift to this family. Um, I just don't even know how to describe the love and the beauty she brought us. But I'm grateful that I'm corny. I'm one of those moms that, I would just all day, I love you. And I just never wanted them to doubt my love. Like, Makayla, I would tell her all the time, you're my little shero. I would tell her that she's just the most beautiful and bravest girl, that she's so strong, and I was so lucky to be her mom. She'd be sitting there watching TV, and I'd just be watching her watch TV, just because I love to see her facial expressions, and especially watching the superhero movies, because she had her little crushes on the superheroes. And so when one of them would get on screen looking all cute, I'd see her blush, and I'm like, uh-huh. I mean, I miss little things like that. Like, I'm telling you, just her, she was just everything.
And
beautiful.
that's why I wanted to make sure that you told that part, because we reflect back on 2020, because 2020 was heavy for various reasons. I always say that, but 2020 was special. That part, that the spring, the way that we started slowing down was so special for you and your family.
Yeah.
And like you said, you enjoyed every part of that, because normally how busy we were, it wouldn't be space for the things that you did with Makayla. And so it was like time was slowed down just for you and your family.
Yeah. And I'll always appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's comments, and I want to bring Stephanie up in a second. Would it and I don't want to put you out there, but I know you told the story too, even her, the last moments you've had with her. And if that's not something you want to share, you don't have to, but even resonating with the other moms, what Tania shares about losing her child too. And she says your stories aren't the same. There's so much similarities to it. And even for you to know that what you're saying is touching the hearts of other mothers. And that's what we're talking about, right? Like a mother's love, all together. Like, and how strong not only was Makayla, but how you were in these moments as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that the last couple days with Makayla, well, actually the week before Makayla's passing, I had a full hysterectomy. I was having a whole lot of pain, especially with exercise. And it turned out I had a prolapsed uterus, and it was really bad. And so I had the complete hysterectomy, and Makayla was my nurse when I got home. So, like, for that week, I got to get yelled at by her to sit back down, and if I need something, let her know. Like, just she was so sweet. So she was tending to me, bringing me snacks, drinks, and all that stuff. So she had a checkup on June 22nd, and she had to get the COVID test too before surgery. So before my surgery, I had the COVID test, and it hurt so bad for like 2 hours. I was still crying, like my eye would not stop watering. And so when she went in for her, she was a little nervous. But thankfully, whoever did it didn't hurt her. She said it actually tickled. and she thought I was being a big crybaby and dramatic. she was she was so funny. She knew how to pick on me. But so yeah, so she got her heart checked, the echo and EKG like normal. Everything was great, they said. So she went in for surgery that morning, just a regular heart cath, like she's had so many times in the past. They take a little biopsy to check for any rejection. They take measurements just to make sure all the pressures are good. And her surgeon, her cardiologist, came out and said everything looked great. Like she looked perfect. And so we were told we could go home. So after that procedure, you actually have to lay still for about 4 hours. So we laid up in the hospital, ate, drank, got her some energy because she hadn't eaten since the night before. She was able to walk herself to the wheelchair and got her down to the car. We had to stop to grab some prescriptions. So we stopped and then went home. Makayla was too tired to go up to her room, which is the usual after a procedure. She usually hangs out downstairs with us and just sleeps off the rest of the grogginess. But she had fallen asleep on me and, rubbed her cheek for a little bit, kissed her forehead, and moved out the way so she could lay all the way out. And she rested for a little, said she was a little hot. So since it was summertime, I took off the blankets, turned on the fan, helped cool her down. Shortly after that, though, she sits up and screams and grabs her chest. So I brought her back. Like, I was able to breathe life into her for a moment. I brought her back. She called out. She reached out. And then we lost her again. And the paramedics arrived within about 4 or 5 minutes. They tried. The hospital tried for about 2 hours. I remember I was watching them work on her, and I kept glancing at the clock like, I watch all those shows like Grey's Anatomy and House, and like I love the medical dramas. Like I have medical issues, and I loved learning about them and watching those shows. And I kept looking at the clock, and I knew what it meant as the time kept going. And I'm like, hold on, it was going too fast. But then I see the doctor go over to talk to Christian, and I remember telling them, no, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. But I told them I knew what they were going to say, but not yet. Then I begged them to try harder. I remember yelling at them that this girl didn't fight for 12 years. And of course, she was fully exposed as they tried to get her back. And I was like, look at that. Look at what she's been through. You're not giving up on her now. And so they kept going a little bit longer for me. A little bit longer. But then I knew even if they got her back, she wouldn't be here because it was too long. It had been way too long. So I told them it was okay. And then I told her it was okay. I told her I was proud of her. That she was the strongest person I've ever known. And that I loved her. And that everybody will remember her. And we all love her. I just kept whispering to her. Everything that came to my mind, I just tried to make sure I said everything I could. And I'm so grateful. I got to be there for her in the end. Like, I got to hold her hand. I got to rub her cheek. She got to hear my voice. Like, I told her she didn't have to be scared. I know a lot of mamas don't get that honor, they don't get that privilege, but I was privileged to be able to talk her through it.
And that's something I definitely want to say, Stephanie. Like, I do thank you for sharing that part. And I think privilege is a good word. Like you were privileged enough to have 12 years with your daughter. I remember what you told me before, when the doctors speak, they didn't say 12 years, when she was born. They give a totally different prognosis, right? With the diagnosis of what they think. But
she and I have we've both been given time limits, like with my kidneys, with her heart. We've both been told, you've almost maxed out. And it's like, and then we've both been given more time. Like, we were given, like, I always say we're on borrowed time. Like,
I think
that's what it feels like.
I think the doctors give their take, but I think God has the final say. He gives the equation, right? He adds some more numbers to the math column and puts this love and this experience. And I think that's a beautiful part of the story too, right? Just being able to spend all those years with your daughter, all those experiences, even the smiles. I mean, and I feel like, and Stephanie, you can jump in. Well, you're both named Stephanie, you know what maybe you can jump into. Like, the walks or picking up the money and the smiles from the superheroes, and even being witty enough to say to the man in the store, like, no, this is what this is. And I could just tell that she's a mighty warrior, like you called her, like how you identify her as. Stephanie, what were you going to share? Oh, you're on mute, ma'am. There you go.
I'm on mute, sorry. So Stephanie, I just want to say as thank you. It's been an honor to see Makayla through your eyes. And one of the things you said, I have so many notes, so many points, so I'm gonna try to do that as quickly as I can. But one of the things you said was that you told her that you would make sure that people knew about her and knew who she was. And I just want to thank you for the vulnerability that you used today to honor her and her legacy, because today you showed us her power and her might and her resilience and how strong and beautiful she was. And all of us has had an opportunity to be exposed to this amazing light and life. And I can only imagine what it's like for you to come and sit with all these strangers and share. But I'm so grateful that you took the opportunity to share her with us today in the way that you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. I love sharing about her. She really did impact my life so greatly. She was such a positive influence. Like, I told her how honored I was to be her mom. I mean, I don't think I was worthy, but honored to be her mom.
And that translates through your words, through your expressions. And for those that don't know kind of what I do, I specialize, of course, in helping support individuals and their families who are living with serious illnesses, and even those exploring mortality and end of life. Working in palliative care, that's what I do. And so also that means I follow families in transition into grief, right? And supporting them with their grief for some, and hopefully celebrating victories with others. And so part of what you said to me said to me, I feel like we was talking one-on-one, but part of what I heard from you is that there were a few lessons for just moms in general about being an advocate. You were a fierce advocate for Makayla.
I know. I was so worried that they would try to get me for Munchausen's, like, because I would get so frustrated with one hospital, I would go to a different one. I'm like, you guys are idiots. You're not listening. Stop saying it's gas. Like, it's more than that. I know it is. And so it took months and months before we finally had an answer. And it was so frustrating for her because she felt like she wasn't being heard, but
Mm,
she knew I was fighting for her. Like, having lupus, it took about a year and a half of being sick before I was diagnosed. Um, and I understood her frustration. I'm like,
yeah.
you know something's wrong. You know this isn't how I'm supposed to feel, but nobody's offering the right answers, the right solution.
Right.
And then finally you get it, and you're like, told you, like. And I felt so bad for her.
Yeah.
She went through that a lot. She would get sick, and I mean, it would take time to find what was bothering her, and then how to fix it, finding the right medicine. And she had to be a trooper. She had to learn to swallow pills early. I remember they tried teaching her with like little confetti and then Tic Tacs, like they try to keep upgrading, little M&Ms, and
Mhm.
she would freak out. But then a month later, she can grab a handful, toss it in, and
Yeah.
down it with the water. And I'm like, she
Yeah.
just, she knew how she had to adapt. Like, she knew she had challenges,
But
and she was willing to fight.
But you know what I hear in that is like when I hear you describe how you were walking with her through the journey and then also her responses is that I believe resilience is modeled and learned. It's a learned skill. And I believe what we hear in the mighty warrior Makayla is the resilience that her mom, Stephanie, demonstrated. You empowered her to find her voice and to be able to find this ability to advocate for herself and speak up. And a lot of people, even adults, don't have that skill because they haven't seen it
Mhm.
adequately modeled or taught to them.
Yeah.
But in walking with her in this journey, you empowered her and emboldened her even, hey, guy at Walmart. Um, but you emboldened her and empowered her to kind of just use her voice and find this resilience that even if circumstances weren't going her way, or even if they were scary, or even if they were difficult, she marched anyway. She went forward anyway. And I
Yeah.
think that is something that you taught her and you demonstrated and you showed her and that she was able to model in return.
Thank you.
And somebody said she fought because you were fighting, and I think that's absolutely beautiful. Sorry, I have a little person here, but I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I think one of the things I would also like to highlight is that when you talked about grief, when you talked about grief and how other people became attracted to you, it's kind of like this magnet where there are these, when you're a grieving mother, it's a club nobody wants to belong to.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
when you are, there's this magnet and you guys kind of connect. And I think I want to speak to that a little bit because I think sometimes when we're consumed and we have all of these emotions going and we're dealing with the loss of the person that we love, and in your perspective, a daughter, the last thing some people may want to do is hear from other people who are hurting too.
Mhm.
Right? The last thing they want to do is share space with other people who may be hurting. So what about you and in your experience said, you know what? Yeah, I'd still want to share time and space with other people who are hurting and maybe where I am.
So throughout Makayla's journey, I shared a lot about her. And her journey's not over. Like, I'm seeing this as part of her journey. It's part of her living on. So I feel like it's my duty to share that beautiful, beautiful child, the light that she brought to the world, to try to keep it as bright as it could be, because it was so beautiful. Like, it's so unreal. Like, even when I go and visit her, I'll I typically bring a little speaker with me, a blanket, and I play the music that we used to listen together as I clean off her headstone. And I'll find myself, singing along and closing my eyes and just looking back to that moment, like the rides in the car and stuff like that, holding her hand, making faces at each other, just enjoying music. Like she gave our family the gift of song. Like that girl would sing all day, all night, every talent show. She loved to sing, and she had beautiful taste in music. So it was just having that to hold on to, having so many memories. I know a lot of mamas out there, they don't, a lot of the grieving mamas I know, they didn't get nearly as much time as I got. And I can't imagine that. I mean, I feel so deeply for them. I know someone had commented of a stillborn child, and it's, I couldn't imagine never hearing their cry. Like, I try to, I just try to be grateful for what I had and what I still have in her. I mean, I have so many beautiful memories, so many amazing moments with her, and just holding on to those as much as I can.
Yeah.
It helps.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think one of the things that comes up a lot of times when I'm seeing, families that are grieving is that they're learning to live with their loved one in this new way. My perspective on grief is a little different than some. I believe that part of what our challenge is with grief is that we force ourselves to try to think and act as if that person didn't exist, as if there isn't a space that they were in, and if there wasn't a space and time that we shared and love and connection. And so that forces us this undue imbalance. And we're in this tug of war with our reality and our heart. But I think what you're modeling is exactly what I believe is helpful in grief, is when we learn to live with our loved one in this new way, where we learn to embrace their legacy and the love that we have for them in this new way, where that means we may not have the tangible touch of their skin anymore, but we can still connect, whether it's in the moments, in the songs, in the sounds, in the journaling, whether it's the messages, whether it's the voice notes, whether it's the letters, but creating opportunities to really connect and have still communication and connection with that love, because the love isn't lost.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you do just such a beautiful job of sharing that and modeling that for us, because it's really something to think about. But also, what I hear in that is that you're doing exactly what you did when she was living, which is be intentional and deliberate in your love and connection with her.
Yeah.
And so for the moms that are listening, that would be my encouragement. I know for me, that was something that immediately rose up in me, was like, how intentional am I being about the moments? Right? Am I soaking them in? When you said you were sitting and watching her watch TV, and I saw the joy kind of consume you from just like the remembrance of her smile watching TV, or the emotion. And I think if we're not careful, we'll miss those moments and not have a reflection.
Yeah, I mean, I got to, for the most part, be a stay-at-home mom. But just like with the pandemic, with me, my pandemic was inside. So my lupus was running crazy. But still, I'm grateful I got to be home. I found ways to work from home when money got tight, because, being sick is expensive. So I did a little call center job from home, and I remember I was doing dialysis from home at that time too.
Wow.
So yeah, so and then Makayla was like, I guess she was about 3 years old. Malachi was 4, and so Michael was about 6. And so I had 3 little ones running around while doing dialysis and working from home, and it would get crazy. But just learning to appreciate the fact I got to be home. I got to, witness all their stages. Like, even though I was sick a lot of the time, and Sometimes I get on the floor with them and I'd have to wait till my husband got home to help me back up. Like, that's how sick I was.
Wow.
But he'd always help me up, and then scold me for getting on the floor. Stop doing that. I'm like, but I tried to enjoy the moments as much as I could with them. It was, I remember for a while with each kid, there were times where I couldn't even hold them because my grip wasn't strong enough because lupus
Wow.
was so bad. But like through my sickness, through her sickness, it's, you learn to live in the moments more.
Yeah.
Because they can be short. I mean, with lupus, I'm thankful. It's been quiet. My lupus went quiet about 6 years ago. Uh, Within the year before Makayla started her transplant journey. So I was grateful that I wasn't sick while she was sick.
Right.
Though I made myself sick a couple of times from not sleeping and stuff like that. But the nurses would look after me and make me eat and stuff like that. But I mean, just really trying to appreciate. Childhood goes by so fast. My oldest we're setting him up for senior year now. And it's like, hold on, I just graduated high school, didn't I? And everything goes by fast. And it seems to just go by faster and faster. So, I mean, I try to get our boys out, get our family hiking. I'm from California originally, and my family, my dad, my stepmom, my little sister, and her husband, they all moved out here to Oklahoma to be with us after Makayla passed. Like,
Wow.
I told them they had came from for her services. They ended up staying like 3 weeks just to be with us and support my family. And I told them, I want that. I need that. I want my boys to have you around. Like, and I know they hated missing so much of my kids' childhood being so far away. And so they all moved out here. They're all within a 15-minute drive now. And we're starting to spend more of those family moments together. And I'm so appreciative of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, such a beautiful, the village, how you guys have rallied and made the lessons tangible, like really decided to walk in those lessons and experiences. And I think, one of the things I've learned doing grief work is that no two experiences are the same. No two losses are the same. And what's beautiful about your willingness to share is that someone else who may be experiencing a loss, whether similar or not, can take so many lessons from how you are actually moving with. I apologize. My little person is he's like a Houdini. He keeps coming back in the door. But one of the things that I think is so powerful is that no matter what the experience has been for someone else, what they can take from what you've shared about Makayla, how you've moved, how your family has responded, how your village has responded. There is a lesson for us all in every part of your journey. And so thank you so much for choosing to share. There are so many things that we can take away from this, not only the brilliance that is Makayla, the little nuggets that you shared with us. And now we're all better because we've been exposed to her light, but also just the tangible lessons. So thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Thank you. This was really, no problem. Definitely. I mean, your story was absolutely amazing. And I mean, watching the comments I'm seeing, I think from the comments I see, the moms are definitely resonating. Even Stephanie, when your son came in, I think every mom in here probably, realized, Stephanie, we're sorry when your son came in, that those things happens as mom, right? And that's what we're talking about, are these life experiences of a mother's love. And, even as my pastor just shared a moment ago, and what we, had mentioned, just the 12 years that you were able to have with Makayla, and even the moments and the way this village, this tribe came in, like literally came in, like moved into the state and is here with you and is supporting you, and knowing that you have two beautiful boys. And even as you started off, and what Tania's on here too, what she told us a few weeks ago, even after uh, as she mentioned, stillborn of her first child, that she still says she has three boys. And as you started off, I have three children. You know, and just that space and being special and saying you do have three children. Makayla's a mighty warrior, and I'm just grateful that you were able to share the story of Makayla with us. I'm grateful because I heard some more of it the other day and tonight, so I'm excited about that. But just a mighty warrior that she is, and the warrior that you are, and the unbelievable love you show as a mom. I just thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah. If, what if there's a mom that's watching? And thank you, Stephanie Beebe, for even your expertise in this area as well. You know, I know you got a difficult job, like spending time with families and those that are planning around like illnesses and what have you. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you both, both of you Stephanies. And then if Stephanie Gray, if anybody has, and for Stephanie too, I'm gonna get to you. If anybody has any questions, say there's a mom that's watching either right now or is gonna watch the replay, and they have questions for you about how you're managing this, or maybe they're going through something difficult. Maybe they experienced the loss of a child. Can they reach out to you? Is that an option, or would you point them in a certain direction?
Mm-hmm. They can definitely contact me through Facebook. My name's just as it's spelled on the screen. You can find me there, or I will put my email in the comments on Facebook if anybody wants to email me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then Stephanie Broussard, if somebody wants to reach out to you, if they have any questions about how to cope with their illness or how to deal with grief, is there anything you would say to them? How can they reach you?
Well, they can always reach out to me at Stephanie@lcscac.com. Nope, that's it. Yes, Stephanie@lcscac.com. But I just always want to encourage people to understand that although grief is a heavy mantle to carry and it can feel very isolating and lonely, but there's always some support networks, or you can get plugged into a grief therapist or bereavement support groups. And so we just want to encourage you to create community and don't isolate, don't alienate yourself. Dive in, because it could feel like no one else can bear to even imagine what you hold. And that may be true, but that does not mean you have to hold it alone.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both so much. And both you, Stephanie, just stay on one moment, please. Don't go anywhere. Like, don't log off. Just stay on there. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in tonight. Remember, our storytelling series for May is A Mother's Love. So we heard from Stephanie, who was absolutely courageous, absolutely able to be open with us about the 12 beautiful years she shared with her daughter. From Stephanie Broussard, even from a therapist perspective, even as a mom, is understanding this process and what it takes there. But this is what Strong Witness is about. It's about sharing lived life experiences that not only help us to heal, but also heal in community. So thank you for all the moms that are listening. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Again, in this comment, Stephanie Gray, like the humbleness in your voice, that you take pride in being a mom, and appreciate you sharing your story here, but again, this is what Strong Witness is about, all these things. About community, about sharing, about connecting. And so I want you all to continue to tune in the remainder of this month too. I mean, next week we have a story of a woman now who lost her mother in her elementary years, and the week after that, a teenage mom. If anybody who is watching this has a story that they would like to share, make sure you reach out to me. I don't care. Like I said in the beginning, I don't care if you got to write a poem, if it's a photograph, if it's artwork, or if you want to get on here, you want to jump in and you want to share. Please do that, because this is about storytelling, right? Not about me talking the whole time, but about other people jumping in and being open to share. So I thank you so much. And Stephanie BB, of course, if you want to come back and have discussions with us, we do appreciate it. But remember, Tuesday nights, 6 p.m., these story sessions, we want you to jump in and join us. Okay, so everybody have a blessed night. I'll make sure I'll see you next Tuesday. And to all the mothers, happy Mother's Day. Okay? We'll see you next week.